Hey everyone, I hope all of you are doing alright and welcome to Kayan Al-Bashar, where today let's just say I got carried away again. Not station heavily carried away, because that would have been a nightmare to start all over again, literally in the second episode. But I built Petra, or at least the most iconic building from Petra. I think if you search for Petra, you basically only get this building, even though it's an entire city. And I think, if my memory serves correct, this building was originally a treasury of some kind. I don't know for sure, so don't quote me on that, but I just used the building as some kind of temple for the Siberian tigers, and we are not even going to be able to put those Siberian tigers in today, because as I said before, I kinda got carried away. I want to quickly say something before we really actually get into the building, and that's that the village actually has a name. So most of you guys had like the essence of the name, or at least I picked the essence of the name from what you guys said actually. I did however add a little bit because I wanted it to be even darker. But it also fits in with the just reason why the village exists, because yeah, one of the animal habitats is going to be a mine. I think I asked you guys that of like the mine in the first version of Kayan Al-Bashar. I think it was before we built the flooded ziggurat. And yes, the mine is making a return. One of the animals is going to be in there. And it is one of the animals that actually fits in with the region. So I'm not going to build like a monkey habitat and then place them in a mine in the frozen wastes. However, maybe the Japanese macaques, I think that's how you pronounce it, probably not, but I'm just going to pronounce it that way. They might be able to work in that, but I want to put those in a forest. I don't want to put monkeys in a cave. But yeah, one of you guys, or actually most of you guys, just got the essence of the name, but I just gave it a little bit of a darker twist, which again fits in with why the village exists. And it's not a pleasant change. Well, actually, the meaning of the name, and I'm not going to reveal it just now because we're going to go back to the village probably in the next episode, and then I'm going to reveal it. But yeah, most of you guys had like a sense, or at least let's just say the first word of the name. Most of you guys had some version of that. But anyway, so back to the building. So in the original Petra, I think it was a treasury, but here it's going to be a temple for the Siberian tigers. Again, we're not going to be able to put those in today because I got carried away again, and then I just, built forever. And so the Siberian tigers are going to have an outside part of their habitat, which actually is, well, this is just the biggest thing in their outside habitat. And it actually leads into the inside part. I mean, it's basically a massive doorway. And then the inside habitat, actually that's what we're going to do in the next video, and maybe we'll get to the village then. But yeah, this is literally just well, actually, for the building, for the longest time I searched where to place this. Most of the times I go into building and I know exactly where I want it. Here I was just like, I want to build Petra. No clue where I'm going to place it, but it's going to be part of the Siberian tiger habitat. It was a lot of fun, especially because I had to actually make sure that the colors of the walls almost exactly match the stone, or yeah, the rock of Kayan Al-Bashar. So that was a little bit of like, alright, I usually try to avoid it so that buildings pop out a little bit more instead of blending in, because if you have buildings like close to a rock wall and they're the same color as the rock wall, then yeah, they just blend in a little bit too much most of the time for me. So to actually go along with that, it was a little bit of like, I have never really done it like this. So it was interesting, but then again, like the original Petra was not mostly, but most of the like known buildings were carved out of the walls of the, I think, canyon. I think that was built, or at least this building I think was built in some form of canyon or ravine. Really just the most iconic building. Like, I had actually a harder time searching for the rest of the city because I want to include Petra as like an artistic reference for the rest of the Mirage Mountains. Most of those references that I'm going to take, I think, are from tombs, so kind of fits in with like the duality of the Mirage Mountains as something very beautiful, but then also very deadly. And the name of this village also just really heavily ties into that. I can give one teaser, which is it's I think a byproduct of gold smelting or waste product. But anyway, so it was a little bit difficult actually to build this building because, well, I didn't build it on skill, so it was literally just like, alright, this is how it looks like in real life. I have no idea about the measurements, but this looks kind of similar. And then I also, as I said before, I needed to make it look like it was basically carved out of the rocks. However, as I said, I don't really like doing that because then the building just blends in. So I allowed myself one other color that's basically just a little bit of a lighter shade than the rest of the rocks, or at least the rest of the walls, and I am so grateful that we have these plaster wall pieces that are non-grid, because otherwise this would have been a difficult thing to build. Because there are no real like other pieces that I could use for this that have like the same look. Because even though Petra is carved out of basically rock, like it's completely carved into the walls of the canyon that it sits in, it still looks very smooth. So if I needed to use, let's say, the mud brick walls, then it wouldn't really go well. Yeah, also why build Petra in the mountains? Just because I like it, and I didn't want to build it in the desert. Like, the original Petra is in the desert, but I didn't like that, and I wanted something that was a little bit more jaw-dropping for this area, so then I just thought, like, let's place Petra into the mountains. I mean, it will probably look a lot better with like all those icicles hanging off the, can you call it a roof? I mean, it's basically just a ginormous doorway, so yeah. And this is literally just the doorway for the Siberian tigers into their indoor habitat, or indoor portion of their habitat, so nobody was there to stop me, so I just continued building. And again, like, most of the time I spent was actually like, where do I place this? Because I had no idea. Again, like, most of the times I really build with the idea of like, alright, it needs to be in this exact location, it needs to look this way. This is also the reason why I'm not going to ever let anyone touch Kayan Al-Bashar, other than me, of course. Because I am a little bit perfectionistic, and yeah, let's just say, is it like some form of commitment issues when I don't want to let anyone touch Kayan Al-Bashar, because I have just like such a plan of like how I want things to look that it's just like, you go against it, then you're immediately gone. Yeah, so no one but me is going to touch Kayan Al-Bashar, because it's my baby. Yeah. That's literally the thought process that goes through my brain. So, yeah. Let's just say I went insane again. Although, even though it's kind of an iconic building, it didn't really require a lot of pieces. I think basically door frame is maybe, actually I think it's blueprintable, which says a lot, because most of the buildings I built aren't blueprintable. Well, except for the, let's say, village homes and such. Those are definitely blueprintable. That was the worst pronunciation ever. And also, yeah, the sheep have been going at it. I actually want to build maybe a second habitat, not because I want more animals, but because I want sheep on the other side of the village as well. So, yeah, I can't connect the two habitats, and I don't actually want to, because then there wouldn't be sheep in, let's say, one part of the habitat. I mean, I'm already running that risk with the tigers, because most of their habitat is actually probably going to be inside. So that was a little bit of like, do I really want to do this? Yes. Mainly because I wanted to build Petra. But building, well, basically Petra for Kayan Al-Bashar, I really just wanted to give another reason for why the village exists, because I'm just going with the story that, like, in winter this region really becomes inhabitable. Like, it's already difficult during summer, but during winter, even if you're, let's say, have a nice little roaring fire to heat or warm up your home, even then, like, the moment that fire goes out, you are just in danger of freezing to death. So it's another reason to make this village a little bit more reasonable, except for obviously like mining and just other kinds of products that they could make here and probably can't make anywhere else in Kayan Al-Bashar, is that Petra is a temple. So you will obviously get, let's say, pilgrims and such going to here. And yeah, the temple is overrun by tigers, but I have a nice little backstory for that. But yeah, it just felt right to also have a temple, because usually in, let's say, RPGs or just any kind of fantasy setting, you always find the temples and shrines in the most illogical places, mainly up into the mountains. I mean, I'm right now thinking of Skyrim and, let's say, the I think it's called the Throat of the World, or Higher Hrothgar or something. Yeah, why is that on the highest peak of the mountain? Like, why do you want temples on a high place? I mean, I get that it's, you know, fantasy and it makes it look even more epic, but yeah, it's hard to get supplies out there, I would say. I mean, that makes it another reason why this village exists, because it's literally, or mostly there, at least with the people that stay during winter, to give supplies or make supplies for the temple. Another reason to make this village reasonable. But yeah, most of the temples in fantasy settings are usually in very illogical places if you think about it. I mean, yeah, this makes Kayan Al-Bashar actually even more fantasy-like, which I really like. I mean, I can go crazy, and again, there's no one to stop me. So yeah, maybe I should stop, but I'm not going to. But yeah, so the temple is really just there to, well, for some reason this is going to be like a religious place, of course, because it's a temple. But I just have the backstory in my head of, like, this temple was here long before the village was ever here. Like, it's, well, first of all, a complete different architecture style than the rest of Kayan Al-Bashar is going to have. Like, the rest of Kayan Al-Bashar is completely like Islamic Arabian architecture, and this isn't. I mean, it takes more from Roman / Greek / just classical times than anything else. Also, yes, I did put a reference in for the broken statues that actually do line the front of this building. I don't know if I want to keep them there, but I'm not going to place the in-game statues in here because, first of all, they are all marble. I don't know why we can't recolor them, because I don't think the textures would suffer too bad, at least on the marble parts of the statues. But yeah, I didn't want to put them in here because, I mean, the entire temple is supposed to be carved out of the mountain. So to make them marble statues that are clearly not from the mountain itself just felt weird. So yeah, we just have like references to the actual real building where the statues are all destroyed. Or at least, yeah, I think they're all destroyed. Like, some statues are a little bit more intact, but not a lot. So, what's fun to build? However, there's some limitations, of course, because, well, most of this building is actually made out of those plaster pieces, either wall pieces or the columns, but yeah, that doesn't give you much pieces to work with. So, especially for, let's say, the decorations on the pediment and the friezes, yeah, I needed to be a little bit like, Alright, what pieces do we have? What can I use? What can't I use? And how do I make this work? So, yeah, the actual building has a lot of decorations on the friezes and just the pediments and the roofs and such. Here I couldn't really do that because we don't really have the pieces to make that. Or at least we might have them, but I haven't discovered them yet. But, I mean, I really just like the building, especially because it is like a really, like, this is one of the few buildings in the real world, I would say, that's really just looks like it's ripped out of an RPG just completely, or just any kind of fantasy setting. It looks illogical. Like, why take the time to carve such a building out of a mountain or the wall of a canyon? I think it's in real life in some kind of canyon. I mean, in real life it's in a desert. I think it's in Jordan, in the Levant area, but yeah. I just like to take buildings and put them in a very different setting. But yeah, because it's a temple, of course I couldn't just have this one building. So I basically built like a little bit of a gallery just overlooking the entrance to the temple. And yeah, this is actually leading up into the inside area of the tiger habitat. Again, we're not going to be able to place the actual tigers because I didn't finish the habitat in time for that. Well, actually I could finish the habitat, but then yeah, strap in for a 50-minute episode then. Well, actually 60. Like, just a full hour of me building. And I can't be entertaining for a full hour. I mean, I barely am entertaining as it is, so yeah. And I want to, like, this is just a little bit of like what I'm going to do in the next video, but I want to have a bridge leading into the actual like real inside or indoor habitat area. But that's just for the next episode. But I really like that I put this gallery right here. It's kind of like if pilgrims go to this temple, then like the priests are just looking down upon you. Like they're just shaming you before you go into the door. But as I said, the temple is actually overrun by tigers, but I want to have the backstory that the priests are the tigers. Like, I always wanted to go for like the magical feel with Kayan Al-Bashar. I've talked a lot about like the djinn. Also, yes, Benjamin didn't want to leave, he's about to mature, and I just got carried away, forgot to put the notifications off, so yeah, I think he's going to be about to mature for another minute or two. I hope I get some kind of sense and actually put away that notification. But yeah, so for the backstory, I thought that like the tiger is actually run by the temple is run by the tigers, and then when they are not like performing services or something, they from their djinn form, because djinn can take all kinds of forms, I think, like they can look demonic, they can look angelic, they can look anything in between. I think I've seen somewhere that they can transform into animals, so I'm just riding that one. So let's just say the priests just transform into tigers, and if you fail or make them angry in any way, well, then the name of the town comes into play, but also you just get mauled to death. So don't anger the priest, just for the sake of your own life, because they're not going to be happy when you do that. So I first thought like, oh, let's make this look very ruined. Like this is a place where you only go if it's like absolute necessity. But then I just thought like, yeah, the people in Kayan Al-Bashar probably superstitious enough to just go here all the time. I mean, priests don't have to do grocery shopping then, but yeah. I really wanted to make this part of Kayan Al-Bashar as dark as possible, so yeah, we have priests now that transform into tigers, and anyone who angers them or doesn't worship them in the right way gets mauled to death. Probably eaten as well. Probably. Or just thrown off the mountain. I mean, that's also an easy way to kill a person. This video is going to be interesting with all the mentions of death. But yeah, on to the next building, which I'm not going to build the entirety of because that took way too long and most of it wasn't that interesting, but it's basically just the first idea was just to build, let's say, a mess hall or like the cafeteria for the priests, because they obviously need to eat somewhere when they are not eating worshippers. Yeah, this video is going to be very family friendly. I mean, my channel's not very family friendly, so I don't really care about that. But yeah, let's just say they also have kind of a human side to them. However, for zoo purposes, of course, it's going to be just a place to look upon the Siberian tigers. Or look upon the priest, however you think of it. But first I really thought, like, because this outside area, like, this is... when you go to the Siberian tigers, the first thing you see is Petra, or just the iconic building of Petra. I should probably have done more research, because I have constantly been referring to it as Petra or the iconic building. I should have probably looked up the actual name of the building. But again, like, the first thing you will find, and probably for quite some time the only thing you will find about Petra, is literally just this building. Like, I don't know how it came to be, but yeah, just one building overtook a whole city. I mean, not that much of Petra is still standing. Most of the buildings that are standing are built into the rock wall or just carved into it. But yeah, one building, and the rest of Petra is basically forgotten. Like, look it up in Google search or in Google image search, and you will literally find dozens of pictures of that one iconic building, and the rest, nothing. But yeah, so I originally thought, like, alright, this is going to be the entrance to the temple. Nah, I later didn't go with that, and I made this just into the gardens of the temple. Like, yeah, I went against myself because I didn't know a way to make this actually work. Because if it was the entrance to the temple, then there needs to obviously be a way for, well, for the pathway to connect to the actual entrance, but then I don't want the tigers to escape. So I could place like something maybe that the tigers couldn't climb, but yeah, in the end, the area that was supposed to be where the pathway meets the actual entrance to the temple, I just put a frozen lake in there. Or pond, actually. It's not large enough to be a lake. But yeah, then I put in some, would you call them, braziers or something? But just fences to make it look like there's a little bit of like separation in the garden. That there's like an actual, like, well, garden feel, that it is maintained. Because again, first I thought, like, oh right, let's make this look a little bit ruined. Let's make it that it looks like you only go here when it's absolutely necessary. But yeah, later on I just thought, like, no. Like, I made the flooded cigarette into a ruin. I don't want to build Petra as a ruin. I really should have looked up the name. But yeah. Actually, this temple is also going to have a name, and I'm already going to say it. Mamai. I think I pronounced your name right, and I love that name because, let's just say, sometimes I have the mind of a 10-year-old, and then Mamai just sounds fun. But yeah, one of the names that you brought up actually is going to be used probably as the names for the temple, with a little bit of transforming it so that it also has a little bit of a darker side. Yeah, it's a fun little thing when I ask you guys to come up with names, and most of the time I either take inspiration from your names so that you wouldn't say like, oh, he used my name, but then also he used my name in some way so that it's kind of similar. So basically it's just like a suggestion, and then I look at all of them and just think like, I could use this part of the name that person gave, and then this part of the name that that person gave, and then I add a little bit of my own thoughts into it, and then eventually I come up with a name. But yeah, Mamai, one of those names, a part of it was used for the village and part of it was used for the temple. I'm not going to say what or what went where. But yeah, I really just like how like Kayan Al-Bashar started out as like a very heavily desert area, and now we are building snowy mountains. Also, I've decided for the village to actually go with a little bit of like a Kurdish theme, or Kurdish, or yeah, I'm mispronouncing that name. I'm going to come back into that when we go back into the village, because we're going to be here for another episode, because again, I got carried away. And now we still need to finish the inside of the temple, or the indoor part of the tiger habitat if you want to go for it with a zoo-like feel. But yeah, this was literally just like, how can I make this building? Oh wait, I need to add animals. Alright. They are absolutely going to hate the garden, the animals, because it's way too full of plants and plants that they don't like. So yeah, I should maybe carry a little bit more or care a little bit more about the animals, but I honestly don't. I mean, I'm the guy who put red pandas into a jungle habitat because it looked nice. Oh yeah, I need to rebuild that one again also, but then in a different way, because I made it look a little bit too pristine. I want it a little bit rougher. Like this garden that we're building today is probably the most like structured garden you will see me make, because I don't like it when they look like, let's say, those English gardens or French gardens. Although I don't know how I managed it, but the garden that I originally built for the palace kind of looked like an actual Persian garden. Like the actual Persian garden structure with like 2 green patches on the sides and then one thing in the middle. Most of the times there was a fountain or something, but for us it was just a walkway in the middle. So I don't know how I managed it without ever looking up a Persian garden, but somehow it looked like a Persian garden. So it kind of fits, but it's now also gone. Also, yes, I've been using those trees for bushes quite a lot. I really like them because it makes the piece count a little bit smaller when you just use an entire tree instead of 500 bushes. And I mean, it just looks nice. So it's fun to build, and yeah, I really just like this area, how it turned out, how like it really just started with that one building and then it just grew over time. And yeah, we need to still make the rest of the area, but yeah, this was originally going to be the video where I completed this habitat and built the fields for the village. And this is the 10th time I say it, but I got carried away. And I absolutely love it. Like, this is really one of the few buildings where I'm not going to be humble. I absolutely adore it, I'm very proud of it, and I want to build more like this, and I'm going to in the Mirage Mountains at least. Like, the village and most of the actual like used buildings, or at least the more human scale buildings, are probably going to be, let's say, a little bit more Kurdish. I'm sorry, but I can't really pronounce anything right, but Kurdish type or architecture styles. And then for the actual, let's say, big monumental buildings, I'm going more with like the Petra theme, with everything being carved into the mountains. Most of those are going to be tombs, so it fits in with the Mirage Mountains being beautiful and deadly at the same time. And yeah, actually, now that I think about it, everything that I imagined for the storyline of the village is deadly. Like, most of it isn't friendly. Like, one of you guys actually mentioned, like, who lets their sheep out when it's winter? Or who left their sheep? Maybe that person got mauled by the priests. Maybe he starved along the way, or got buried in an avalanche. Like, there's so many dark ways you can take that story. Like, just that simple line of like, who left their sheep on the mountain? Yeah, let's just say the dark parts of my brain were really happily triggered by just the Mirage Mountains. And I'm really just, yeah, I love this area already. Especially because I can also go crazy with the flowers, because, I mean, that builds into the pretty side of the Mirage Mountains, I would say. However, before I forget to mention this, the schedule for this week and the next week is going to be pretty similar. So this week we only had an upload Wednesday and now on Saturday. And the next week will probably be the same because college, like, it's after the holiday, so everything kicks into high gear for 2 weeks. And after that I will look into the schedule, like see if we can either return to the old one or go into a new one. But we will see then. Anyways, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to see more. And I wish you all an amazing week. Bye bye.